Jump in.
Why not?
Let me scoot over for you.
Here, take.
Oh, true
Oh,
gentleman.
that was so nice.
Just did. I'm already the same
Good
height
guy,
as you guys.
good guy's face mic.
True.
That's true.
Oh, I didn't know my mic on.
Oh,
we should get
man.
Dave back out, actually.
Yeah, if you're willing, are you willing to come back out?
I just
and,
wanted to
chat for a while.
I just wanted to say, Andy Law, Scotland is a part of the UK, but definitely not part of England, Jared. I meant to, you should have seen inside of my head, I mentally locked up because I know there's like this differentiation between different, I don't understand.
That's
So,
different
I'm sorry,
countries
I
in
don't
the UK.
understand it. So, is it like, I'm Californian or like, but I'm also American at the same I'm so confused.
I can't believe I
Just
didn't
an
see
ignorant
this.
American.
I am
But
so
Dota had
confused.
said they're not little countries, they're country McNuggets. Oh, that makes it so much worse and better.
Oh,
I
man.
don't know. I'm so sorry.
On behalf of my American counterparts, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
This will make up for it. Just really quick as well.
Blew it.
Strati mentioned, well, and the Italians have been doing a lot recently as well. Again, yes. I thought that was cool. Yeah. Speaking of
Dave.
countries doing things.
Oh,
On more of a personal note, how have your travels been going lately? Have any fun ski trips lately?
so
In the middle of summer?
yes.
Oh, by the way.
there was, and we were in the northern hemisphere for it. Yeah, we went to Mount Hood for a wedding of a good friend of ours who happens to be a flight surgeon for NASA.
Who shall not be named.
But yeah, so we went up to Mount Hood, Timberline Lodge, and they happen to have a really nice glacier up there, and they have ski lifts running up to that glacier, and they do skiing all year round there. So
Awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
and yes, my better half is better technique, and I have more confidence.
Hey, that's that. There you go. I mean, as long as you believe in yourself, really.
Yeah.
So what? You get a broken leg.
Oh, man. Well, it's great to have you on and get some updates about all of this. Are you guys, let's see, is the broadsword the same thing as, I forgot what the designation was. Someone asked it in the chat room earlier. Oh yeah, the MXP-351. Is that the broadsword?
MXP 351 is a propellant combination that we're using
Okay.
for lunar vehicles.
Okay.
Actually, just for XL1 and XL1T. Even that might change. But it's a propellant combination that we've been developing, and it's proprietary, but it's a storable hypergolic propellant combination. Much less toxic, but with similar performance to the traditional hypergols. And so broadsword is an engine. It uses LOX methane, and it's completely different things, completely different worlds, and yeah.
Interesting.
Very
cool. Jinx.
Yeah.
Talk to each other.
So,
Oh man, there was a whole bunch of other questions from the chat room that we didn't get to. From Twitch, Hanny's Vorwerp asked, are there plans for Lagrange point space stations, and what would be the use? Do you have any opinions about that?
So I don't want, okay. I would love to be building space stations, but that's not part of Masten Space Systems. Masten Space Systems provides the actual transportation, and we would hope to use space stations. And yeah, I think there's a lot of use for Lagrange points. Before the whole show started, there was sort of some discussion amongst the crew here about be excited, like who cares about this stuff? So okay, well, who cares about this stuff? Oh, and another thing, podcast I was listening to, one of the podcasters was totally down on the whole going to the moon and going to Mars, and like, no, we're taking away from all the environmental work that needs to be done here. I'm like,
Oh, golly.
no, this is really simple. We go out, if we can move all of our industrial stuff out into space where pollution isn't a thing, is not nearly the problem. If we can move all that stuff that we don't want in our backyards to someplace a little further away, this would be a really good thing. So Lagrange points are a great place to do a lot of industrial type stuff. The moon might be okay for industrial type stuff. There's still some things to work out. Mars, we'll find out what if there's any life on Mars, I'm afraid that Mars exploration is going to be off the table.
Yeah.
Until we know enough about it, and we can figure out whether or not we can coexist, kind of thing. But still, outer space is a great place. I mean, like, who cares if you have a little extra stuff? And the interesting thing is, certain pollutants, it's like, doesn't matter. Other pollutants are like, well, you're going to keep it clean, you're going to keep it contained because you don't want a cloud of filth around your space station. Because you can't just pump it into the air and the air will carry it away because there's no air. So
Exactly.
but still, if you can move a lot of the stuff that just is, doing a lot of damage to our environment, if we can move that, put that someplace else, and I think we can do a lot more to. So, yeah, moving out into space is part of the environmental protection of Earth. Let's get the most nastiest stuff we do away from Earth and not have it. That is like that's really what this is all about. I think, the whole going out into space is to create new economic opportunities and to protect the Earth and make everything better about here.
Yeah. So do you think then if we did ultimately in the future move all of, like you said, the bad stuff and we kind of outsource it to off of Earth, do you think that would kind of slow down or hinder all of this research and progress going into renewable energies? Because at that point, they don't really need to, because it's like, well, we're not manufacturing here on Earth anyways.
Well, I mean, if we look at some of the renewable energies that we're working on, it's, so first of all, I mean, there are serious environmental considerations with the renewable energies we have. This is one of the things that I have sort of a love-hate relationship with. In Mojave, we actually are quite a hotbed of alternative energies. We have huge wind farms on the mountains surrounding, actually, I guess on one side of Mojave, and then we also have a lot of solar plants going in the area. Well, guess what? There was a plan to expand one of the solar plants quite a bit. And the airport had to nix it because that solar plant has generated so much dust storms. Like, just having the solar plant there means that you don't have the vegetable coverage on, all that scrub brush of the desert is actually really important to the environment because that scrub brush is holding the dirt down.
Interesting.
And so every time, and Mojave's a windy place, so anytime the winds really pick up, you have this huge cloud of dust just blowing away. It's the Dust Bowl again. So you have that kind of consideration you have to worry about. And so, basically the airport and spaceport had to say, go to the county commissioners and go to the state and say, hey, no, you can't approve the plans to expand that because that dust cloud that's currently south of the airport, if you expand that north, is going to be on the airport, and that's going to create a lot of problems. And so, fortunately, the company that runs that solar plant said, okay, never mind, we're not going to fight that. But I mean, that's an issue. So, wind farms also have some serious issues that I don't think we quite understand yet, and we're going to find out about them as the years go on. I know a lot of people who live on the outskirts of Mojave, near to where some of the larger wind turbines are going, have started having a lot of problems and complaining about the very low frequency noise being generated by the wind farms. Those turbines are loud.
Yeah,
I don't think people realize how loud they are because you're just driving by.
Exactly.
You're in the car.
I
If you're in the
like,
Mojave Desert, you don't have the windows down.
on my way into Palm Springs, when I was going to Joshua Tree once, we stopped just to kind of look at the turbines, and man, they really are quite loud.
Yeah.
Because it's a propeller.
Yeah,
and it's moving through
It's
the
like a
air.
bunch of airplanes just like
Kind of. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah. So I mean,
I like your sound effect.
So there are. So I mean, we're doing a lot of work with renewable energy. And I think there's
Nice.
still a lot of problems with it. So
Of course.
hopefully, I mean, basically, anytime you have energy, thermodynamics, your energy, you got to increase the amount of crap and disorderliness, or else you're not paying attention to the law of thermodynamics. So
Yeah.
and that's not a law you can violate. It's not like this, it's not like speed limits.
Yeah, we're not allowed to break physics laws. Yet.
With a lot of your suborbital vehicles, have you guys ever gotten any environmental complaints?
Not really. A neighbor that no longer exists as a company anymore did run into a little bit of problem, and I don't think it ended up being much. The biggest environmental problem in Kern County, which is where we are, is particulate matter. Very small, fine particulate matter. And so there are some problems with that. That is closely regulated. We actually had to do filings on a regular basis with the county saying, we use these propellants and not these other propellants. There are certain propellants that are regulated differently than others. Everything we do is exempt from that because it's all gas mixtures or liquefied gas type mixtures. So we don't really have a problem with that, with particulate matter. But there are some combination. I don't think the hybrids for Spaceship 2 are regulated. I think they're okay on that. But yeah, there are some propellant combinations that would be regulated, and certain things you can't burn because of particulate matter. So, and if you've ever been to the Central Valley during certain times of the day, certain times of the year, you understand why particulate matter is a real problem.
Yeah, especially recently with all the fires too.
With the fires recently. Good heavens, yeah.
Yeah, I was just up in Northern California a couple weeks ago, up in the Inyo Mountains, and that was like, holy moly, going through the Central Valley there. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, so going to that wedding was a real difficult nightmare, sort of.
Yeah.
Basically driving north and going through all the, we can't. We can only see, we're going through this thick fog, except it's not fog, it's smoke.
It's like Silent Hill.
I think we're going to keep the air on recycle.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Another thing that I kind of did want to go back to the lunar lander for a minute. Zap fan asked in here somewhere, what size launch vehicle is your initial lunar lander intended for? Did you design it with any particular vehicle in mind?
So we basically designed it so that it could be launched on any of the EELVs, so Evolved Expendable Launch Vehicles, basically ULA and SpaceX. We could launch it on Falcon 9, we can launch it on basically any of the ULA offerings, Atlas, Delta. It turns out, we've been working with ULA and SpaceX. It is perfectly sized for an Atlas V 401 configuration. And it is also works quite well on the current iteration of the Falcon 9.
Awesome. Okay.
And even with the Falcon 9, we can do the downrange recovery.
I'm not sure if you can talk about this or not, but have you gotten any sort of information from NASA as to what the payloads would be for either yours or any of the other landers that they're looking at?
So the only information we've gotten from NASA, and it's all public record, stuff that was done publicly, NASA has basically said there's there's a lander mission that was recently canceled. All the payloads from that they would like to make available as part of going to the moon on the commercial services.
I think it was the Aiken Basin lander that they were doing.
I don't recall. I don't recall. It's unfortunately, I just don't remember. There was a lander. Some Southeast Asian nation was supposed to do the propulsion system for it or something. It was an international collaboration.
Interesting.
And they ran into some programmatic and technical difficulties, and they ended up canceling the program. But they still have those payloads, and they would like to send those. The Lunar Exploration Applications Group, LEAD, has regular meetings. They have a number of instruments that they talk about at their meetings all the time. So there's a large number of instruments there, and they publish reports on a regular basis. Here's the science that we'd love to do on the moon, and the long list of destinations on the moon and science they can do at each of those destinations. And NASA has 2 or 3 programs for, hey, scientists, tell us what instruments you want to do, what type of work you want, science work you want to do, and we'll select some of you for these missions. So we don't know a lot of the specifics about what's going to be chosen, but we know who the scientists are who want to do science on the moon, and therefore we know what those instruments are going to look like.
At least a basic idea. Yeah.
So we have some idea, and we don't know if NASA's going to offer us specific payloads, but we know what the range is out there.
Sure. The terminology always throws me off a bit, because if they just said lunar landers, then I would assume science experiments and stuff like that. But saying cargo landers, I'm just like, well, what else would you possibly be taking? So I don't know. I looking through the stuff that is publicly available, there isn't anything in there about like, oh, we need someone to bring, X materials that'll be used for something later on. But, wording it as cargo landers makes me think that could be a future goal.
Well, as you go down the timeline that NASA's presented right now, that for the current administration, who knows how it will exist next administration, but for the current administration, we've got a timeline laid out, and you've got the commercial lunar payload services, and those small landers, minimum size is 10 kilograms worth of payload that you can take to the moon, and then they're looking at up to maybe a couple 100 kilograms of payload to the surface. That is pretty much all science stuff. Initial go out and see what's on the moon and try to answer some questions about the moon's history and the moon's geology and all that. Then there's the medium-sized landers. And the medium-sized landers, we start getting into some interesting things because they want to start seeing things like sample return. They want to start seeing things like actually doing stuff towards in situ resource utilization, so actually making stuff out of materials found on the moon.
We're seeing if we can do electrolysis with lunar water or lunar ice.
Maybe, finding out if we can actually use lunar water, lunar ice for things. And then finally, NASA wants to go back. The Human Exploration Mission Directorate wants to get back and put astronauts on the moon, and they want to do it sustainably. And so that means, a lunar base, and that means actually having people living on the moon and working on the moon. So
a wild Ben appears.
So at that point, cargo makes perfect sense because they're going to want to eat, they're going to want food, and we don't know that they're going to be able to grow it immediately. It's going to take a while to get that capability. So we're going to be bringing cargo to them, from Earth. And I say we because ever the optimist.
Yeah, hopefully it's many. Hopefully. Yeah, I hope you guys get a contract. I hope Blue Origin gets a contract. I hope Astrobotic gets a contract. Yes.
Ideally, because
anyway.
If you think about it, there's not just one airline that the government flies on.
Yeah. That's assurance.
Yeah.
So that's just basic, like making sure you can actually get there.
Yeah.
So.
Even with commercial crew, we're ensuring that there's at least two.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's enough.
Yeah. I wish the Dream Chaser was still an option.
It should be 3, 4, 5 of them.
Well, the Dream Chaser's not totally off the table.
Yeah, it's for cargo, and it could be upgraded to crew later, but...
I don't have a mic, so I just have to speak up. I missed my Dave, so I had to come out on set. Let me speak into Dave's chest.
Bad flashbacks.
So did we ever cover why you're doing any of this at all? You've heard the joke before. What's the easiest way to become a millionaire in space?
What's the best way to make it?
Start a billionaire.
Yeah. What's the best way to make a small fortune in aerospace? Start off with a large fortune. Yeah.
But you're not in aerospace. You're in space. We should.
Yeah.
Wow.
Space systems.
Space systems.
How dare you?
So, but why? And you talked about how it gets you up at 4:30 in the morning. You're ready to go. It's that passion. It's that driver for you. But why? What is it about this that makes you go?
So I actually talked about it a little bit earlier. It's it's about let's move humanity beyond Earth. There's sort of an exploration component to it. I am very much a natural explorer. That's, I'm sure we've talked. We have talked about it a number of times. My wife and I go out and We love going up into the mountains and exploring mountains. We'd like to do that with other celestial bodies as well. So there's that aspect of it. There's the aspect of, I think, an overall, taking care of the Earth, basic environmental impacts. I think if we start getting all that nasty stuff and start doing all the stuff we need to do, but that is causing damage to the Earth, if we can put that in space, that's a huge benefit. And how we get to doing that? Well, we got to bring the cost down. We got to take it from being the multi-billion dollars to do a single little tiny thing like it has been traditionally, and we got to bring that down, that price down, that cost point down, to where it's something that you can do as a college student. You can do I would hope that there is a Boy Scout and a Girl Scout camp on the moon in the not too distant future.
You see
maybe
that
maybe the next Philmont. The path here is we got to start doing stuff on the moon, and we got to do it regularly. We got to do it sustainably. And that means reusable vehicles. And guess what? I love doing reusable vehicles. Have I not said this before?
Are you sure?
I've never seen you reuse anything before, I don't think.
So that's sort of the chain of events. I think humanity needs to get out into space for our own good, and that is going to have a positive benefit back here on Earth in so many ways. I haven't even touched on half of them. And then, there's, and to get that chain, let's get it low cost. And you got to get low cost, you got to do the reusability, and that's where I come in. So that's sort of the thing. And now we're going to, build a nice transportation network and infrastructure for moving around in space. And that's, I think, what's the important thing right now.
When? Because we always seem like we're like 10 to 20 years away, and that marker moves by 1 year at the beginning of each new year.
It depends on who you look at. I mean, there are certain companies where, yes, I agree with you that we move even certain organizations, not just companies, where their programs slide out 1 year per year. On the other hand, we do have other programs, organizations, companies who are actually moving the ball forward. So, how long? This is aerospace. This is not something that we've done before. We're trying to break new ground, so it might take a little while. I'm not going to predict the time frame, but I can tell you, commercial lunar program services, those bidding right now need to be ready to land on the moon in 3 years. That is the request for proposal language, is 3 years from now.
Nice. So 2021.
Within the administration.
2021.
You don't need to worry about the launcher. That part's already done. You just need to worry
Launcher's
about landing.
done. Just got to worry about the lander. I got to build a lander. And nice thing about Catalyst is we've been working on a lander for the last several years. So
have a little bit of a head start there.
Just a little bit of that.
What do you think will be the initial thing that gets the space economy going? Space hotels, in-space construction, asteroid mining, or just normal satellite launches?
I think it's going to be a combination. No one thing is going to do it. There's not a killer app that I can see right now. It's a combination of things. And I think we're seeing that combination starting to come together. There's manufacturing and mining interests are starting to be attracted to the idea of the moon and the asteroid belts, and just other near Earth objects. We're starting to see, additional exploration, additional science being done is going to be huge, I think. Going to Mars, I think if you really are serious about going to Mars and you're serious about doing it in a sustainable manner and not doing it as a flags and footprints thing, I think the moon is going to be a very important component of that, because that's where you're going to get your propellants.
You can't flags and footprints Mars, though. I mean, you just orbitally, you can't flags and footprints that, right? I mean, am I crazy here?
Well, you could. I mean, that's what Robert Zubrin's been trying to get us to do for years. big, huge rocket vehicle. You send it to Mars. You do some ISRU for a year. You build another big, huge vehicle, and by big, huge, I mean bigger than.
That's not flags and footprints, though. I mean, you're.
Well, no. Think about what flags and footprints means. It means you land with a few people. You do a little bit of science. Apollo really didn't do any science until what? 18.
15. It was a little bit on 15.
A little bit on 15, but yeah, I mean, 11 was not exactly a lot of science. It was more about landing and showing that we could. And to a certain extent, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen with Mars. I mean, basically, that's what NASA knows how to do is flags and footprints.
You're assuming NASA's the one that goes to Mars, though. I mean, it could be a group. I think Mars is hard enough where it's not going to just be NASA. It's going to be NASA.
Well, I mean, it never has. It's never been just NASA, right? I mean, going Apollo is a huge program, a lot of companies involved.
Sure.
I mean, maybe you've heard of companies like Northrop Grumman who built the lander. Maybe you've heard of, all the other companies that were there putting everything together. But no, it is. It's going to be a larger thing. I'm always concerned about being a flags and footprints thing because I don't see some of the groundwork that needs to be done getting done. We don't know what mammalian biology does in partial gravity, and we're not doing anything to address that. Thing is, the moon's a great place to find that out because you actually have less gravity than Mars, but you have enough gravity to see some of the physical effects of how water works is completely different than how it works in microgravity situations on the 1/6 gravity. But it's still also not working the same way as it does in full 1G gravity.
I wonder what a shower on the moon would be like.
Inefficient.
Yeah, you know how we often make up for the lack of volume by going high pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Just get a
It's poker.
super soaker. There's your solution.
Oh man.
Actually, I do want to interject. There has been a very important question from the chat room that Wicked has been asking.
Yeah, I was about to get to that.
I think it is probably the most important question of all time. And that is, when can we buy some Masten swag?
Yeah, we want your shirt.
We want your shirt.
We want coffee
We
mugs.
want a
We want
rep.
stickers. We want stuff.
This is America. We demand our brand.
Swag.
That is a good question, and quite honestly, one of the most difficult parts about making swag available is we can do it through a very high cost, low quality goods providers. There's a number of those on the web already, or we can, put a storefront on our website, which I don't know if you all noticed, but we have problems maintaining our website sometimes because there are lots of people who like to use every little exploit they can to use your other people's websites for their own nefarious purposes. So, so in other words, we're such a small company that I can't afford to set aside a person to maintain the infrastructure to sell swag. Yeah. So that,
Get it made yourself.
You wouldn't have to worry about ITAR for swag, right?
no, we don't have to worry about ITAR for swag.
It's a close one.
Unless you want a rocket engine or something.
I want a tiny rocket engine mug. That's what I want.
Yeah. I wanted like a
plumbing and
rocket
everything.
engine so I could make a barbecue in it.
He wants one too.
Actually, I was just thinking that would be kind of cool.
Can we have the
could
licensing rights then?
You could actually build like a straw into the mug by using like the active cooling.
Perfect.
Oh my God, this mug will be coming really cool.
Yeah, the cooling on the outside would be clear too, so you could see it come up.
Yeah, except
You
that it would
gotta
have to be
prototype
just
this.
like it would have to go like up and down.
Wait.
The whole thing.
Yeah. It'll suck
ultimate
through the
crazy
bottom and
straw.
go through all the tubing,
But
and then
is it-
ablatively cool the outside of the belt until it
But
finally
is it
gets
going
to
to be
you.
an open cycle or gas generator for it? Like, which one are we going to do for drinking with it?
I think you have to have one of each, and then the community would have to choose which one they want.
Of course,
jeez, this
yeah.
is so difficult.
Of course, yeah.
fire up your 3D printers. Let's
Why isn't this a thing
babies.
yet, community?
Well, it will be now that you gave your golden idea to the world. So
Wait, to Kickstarter.
to Kickstarter.
Pay for that. To Kickstarter. So can we
No,
kickstart
seriously, give
your,
us the licensing rights and we'll give you 80% of the profit.
You know, we might make that work.
Not just saying, Dave's thinking these guys are crazy. No, that was Dave's thinking, like, actually, maybe we could do this.
Why do you think I hear? I know they're crazy. I'm crazy. We're all crazy
I was
together.
trying to figure out how to make it work. He was in it with us on that one.
Oh, man.
Zappin', engine cycle nerd jokes. Nerds.
Nerds. Bunch of nerds. Jeez.
What a bunch of dorks.
Do we need to be clearing out?
Oh yeah, Lisa, how much time do we have here?
15 minutes before I'm gonna kick you guys.
All right,
Okay.
15 minutes
Okay.
before we get
Yeah,
I
15
haven't
minutes.
seen it yet, so maybe 20 minutes.
Someone else was asking a ski question.
That, I saw
All
that.
right. Hey, did I mention to anybody I ran
yeah.
50 miles for my
Jackson
50th
Hole.
birthday?
Yeah, someone's asking you.
crazy.
How long did it take you?
All day.
All day? It's like 12 hours?
How did you
So
feel afterwards?
15 hours.
Oh,
I actually
15
felt
hours.
pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like
I felt really good when I got to the Wonelli Deli at the bottom of the hill and had their huge pork chop plate. Then I felt really good after that.
Mac Malcalwy's asking for a recommendation for Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Ever been to Jackson Hole, Wyoming?
Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I have not actually been there. Everybody I know who has been there, thumbs up. It's really great. There is a couloir that you have to do if you go there, if you are a truly expert skier. Otherwise, you'll probably freak out because it starts off with a very steep drop.
Got it.
Thrill
can you
seekers.
ski on the moon in one of the craters somehow? Slash, would that hurt if the regolith started like you fall and then it just starts scraping up your spacesuit?
Ooh, that
Lunar skiing.
I'm just wondering about the skis lasting at all.
Oh yeah. You start with a full ski by the time they're just gone.
It's like the soles of your feet is what's left.
I thought you were into reusables. You're only making expendable skis for the moon.
Well, you see how far you can get on 80 grit sandpaper.
Oh, man, sorry. I had to. Ooh, Lars von Braun asks, have you had any cool crashes, and will we ever get a blooper reel like Musk made? How many, have you even had more
We
than
have
one
some
crash?
excellent stories about crashes. There's not really any for the blooper reel, though. Basically because cameras don't catch them. We had one particularly bad week where
My cameras do.
good. I'd like to see the footage. Because
available.
seriously, one of the biggest problems. So we crashed a zombie 3 times within a span of about a week.
Oof.
One of them was somewhat flight related. The other 2 were flight related only in the sense that we were bringing the vehicle out, but it wasn't actually in flight. We were putting the vehicle onto the launch pad one time, and the crew did not properly secure the vehicle to the material handler. And so the material handler went to lift it up and started moving it and shook it or whatever. Anyway, the vehicle fell off.
Oh, that's just tragic.
It was a hard landing. We took it back to the shop and we had it ready again. And we
That's
bring it.
referred to as a hard landing.
We printed it out. We dropped it. We dropped it hard. But we took it back to the shop and we fixed it and we pretty much had it ready to go in a day or 2. So we go back out to do the flight again, and we're driving out. And anybody who's been out to Mojave and been out to the test area knows that the hardest thing your payload is going to go through is not the launch, it is not the flight, it is the ride out to the test site. It's dirt road.
The bumps are the sandblasting from the wind.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but mostly the bumps. And so, yeah, we were driving it out, and maybe going a little too fast. And by a little too fast, I mean going 27 instead of 25. And just hit the bumps in the wrong way, and Zombie went boom.
Oh, man.
Would you say it had a hard landing?
And I would say in that particular
tuck and roll.
Well, that wasn't. Yeah, that's more of a tuck and roll. That wasn't just a hard
Gosh.
landing. That was just it came down
Look,
sideways.
Look, you drop the baby once, you drop the baby twice. At some point, you just got to stop giving
Is
those
that
people
why
a
the
baby.
zombies
you know?
retired? Is that why zombies retired? Oh, man.
No, so Zombie's actually done
no,
another.
Zoe's
Zombie has
retired.
Zombie
Zoe's
has
retired.
done a lot of flights since then. Zombie is actually retired, but that's not why we retired it, because it has done a number of flights since then, all very successfully. But yeah, that was. I mean, it was a particularly bad week, but by the end of the week, we actually got the flight off, and the flight was great, and we got paid for it. So yeah.
There you go.
Sweet.
Although it's not related.
But yeah, but that was well before the flight, so we didn't have the cameras out. They were still all in the bag. We didn't have any video of that, no pictures of it. So
Just lovely stories.
lovely
legends.
stories, and that's it.
We'll get an animator on it.
I think I'm having more fun
On the
imagining.
back of the transport utility vehicle, and just have you roll it just on the way out to the pad, because I feel like there's some great footage there, and by great I mean horrible. I like GoPros when they're used correctly. Don't use GoPros on rockets.
But we do. We use lots of GoPros on our rockets.
There you go.
Oh boy.
Oh, boy.
You open up that can of worms.
I have and that's what all the engineers try to do, and I'll just stop right there.
Yeah.
That's
If you have better ideas, I'm all ears.
Serious question.
I do.
Serious question. Even though it's not related to landings, would you ever consider doing propulsion for CubeSats or small sats?
I mean, I think it would be interesting, but no, I don't. I mean, that's like I said. I'm more of a systems guy. I'm not a components guy.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm very much into the systems and systems of systems stuff. I don't know. Besides, there are many other people doing propulsion for CubeSats, small sats that are a lot better at it than I am. So why should I do that? That's not my strong suit.
What if I make a CubeSat lander? No, just kidding.
Just
tiny little legs that come out.
I would help you build the CubeSat lander.
Okay, awesome. All right.
Oh gosh, not this discussion.
Tiny
again.
little legs. It's going to be great. Yeah, CubeSat.
just
You know, you probably don't need the legs if you can land softly enough.
True.
I don't know. I'm imagining a Masten-sized engine like taped to a CubeSat. The engine's like so much larger than the CubeSat.
No, you can use our igniter. Use our igniter. It's about 5 pounds of thrust.
Oh,
No, I
Just
want
the
the,
igniter.
No, we're gonna
alone.
no,
be
no.
enough.
We're
That'd be
putting
enough.
broadsword on a 3-unit CubeSat, and we're
One
gonna
U,
go
one
from
U.
we're gonna go from a 1.5 kilometer per second on orbit to 0 in about 3 seconds, and then we'll just let it drop from about 3 kilometers up down to the surface. That ought to do it, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
We are the show of solutions. I love it.
So you said you're opening up for jobs. Why not hire us? We've got so many solutions.
You just made $1 million off this guy.
Yeah, here we go.
We're known as solution architects here. That's what we do.
That's what we do.
Send me your resume.
Some more just drawings on a napkin.
Now I got to update my LinkedIn.
Yeah,
man.
make sure your LinkedIn profile is good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to share or talk about with us today?
And the last.
I think I've hit everything. I mean, you know, clips. Commercial lunar payload services. Yeah.
That's the new one. Commercial lunar payload services.
In 3 years, you said?
So, commercial lunar payload services, the program goes like this. We're currently waiting. We were supposed to already receive the actual request for proposal. The draft request for proposal has been out for a while now. Request for proposal is now scheduled to drop on this upcoming Friday. 30-day turnaround to get the proposals in. NASA will select. They are still trying to hold to the end of the year, have selections done by the end of the year, announcements in the first quarter of 2019. Everybody they select will be people who they believe, based on proposals, can have a lander ready to go and landed on the moon within 3 years. So, yeah, and they will issue the first task order in the first quarter of 2019 under that contract. The first task order is a payload user guide, and that's, I don't remember, it's some tens of thousands of dollars to the contractor for that, and every contractor selected will be on that task order. And they will start bidding shortly after that, put out for bid future task orders for actual science instruments to be put on the moon.
So assuming everything goes as planned, no critical issues, do you think that's a realistic timeline?
I think it is realistic. I think it is admittedly aggressive, but I think it is realistic.
And then from that point, because that's not humans, that's just a lander on the moon.
Yeah, that's just a lander on the moon. That's a small payload, 10 kilograms up to maybe 100 or 200 kilograms.
What's the path from there? Is there a path? And if there is, what is it from there to humans on the moon?
So so the NASA path is small landers, medium landers. There's a bunch of technology development work that's presumably going to come out. They're still formulating that program, so we don't know anything about it beyond they would like to do some technology development to get medium-sized landers developed and built. Basically, they're wanting to do that as public-private partnerships. We expect just about everybody in the space business to go after those. So everybody, all the traditional players, Lockheed, Boeing, Northrop, the upstart billionaires, we expect Blue Origin, possibly SpaceX, we don't know.
Orbital ATK, a Space Innovations Division of Northrop Grumman?
I believe I already said Northrop Grumman, so I think that covered it.
Is that your path, though?
So our path, and we laid this out in the proposal for the Catalyst program many years ago. XL1 is a basic, we refine our processes to do something where we, instead of building landers that we take out a few miles away to fly, we're now going to land 300 and some odd thousand, 400,000 somethings away. Landing on the moon is not the same thing as going into our backyard and launching a rocket. So, XL1 really matures our processes. And then XL2, we're doing some technology development. That's where we're, looking at going to cryogen propellants, so methane, liquid methane, and liquid oxygen, and a more reusable vehicle. And there's going to be a lot of technology development in that. The lunar environment is really harsh on reusable vehicles, on anything reusable, anything on the moon. We know that, the dust on the spacesuits from the Apollo missions was really nasty stuff. Fortunately, none of our astronauts appear to have had any major long-term problems, but if I recall correctly, there were some short-term problems with some of the astronauts with getting the dust in their lungs. And that lunar dust is everywhere, and since you don't have an atmosphere and you don't have water, you don't have the weathering effects, so the jagged edges on rocks don't get smoothed out.
But Dave, we found water on the moon 20 times now.
In the form of water ice, it's not moving and not going anywhere.
Did you know that Harrison Schmitt breathed in that lunar regolith on purpose?
I did not recall that, no.
Yeah, he did that on purpose, and his whole thing was that when he died, the geologist on Apollo 17.
Did he start coughing up blood? What happened?
Oh, that's
No,
like
it was
asbestos
just,
straight to
I don't know how much it was, but apparently it wasn't enough for him to have
So
many
he
problems. But
snorted
his whole,
lunar dust, is what you're saying.
And his whole thing was that he says that he wanted to have a piece of the moon with him till the day he dies.
He literally did a line of moon.
I don't think he
epic.
snorted it. I think he
I
just.
think that is the
Well,
start
I
of the
guess-
show, Dave.
Wow.
A line of moon.
How about
You got
that?
moon rocks? All right.
So what do you have to do? Do you have to get like a solar panel to scrape it into the with it there, and then just
This is pure uncut.
On that note, I think it's time to convert over to science.
yeah,
Okay.
it's so good.
Dave, it's always fun. I appreciate you
Yeah.
coming out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
you.
coming on.
Thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
Very cool.
All right.
Don't go away. We're just gonna switch it out, and then we got Lisa and Athena coming
yeah,
on the show.
science.
Oh.
And they're gonna be doing